My name is Thomas Gladysz. I'm the director of the Louise Brooks Society and the author of a number of articles and books on early film. I put together this audio slideshow about Louise Brooks and Rudolph Valentino, which I hope fans of both actors will find of interest. It's too bad there isn't a photograph of Louise Brooks and Rudolph Valentino together. What an iconic image that would be. Lulu and the Chic. Latin lover and the flapper. One wonders, might these iconic jazz-age personalities have known one another? Might they have met? Their careers did overlap, if only briefly. And we know from later accounts by Brooks that the two stars encountered one another on a couple of occasions. Certainly, Brooks knew of Valentino. She had been a fan of the actor since she was a teenager. But did Valentino know of Brooks? On the two occasions in 1926, when we think they might have met, one would guess Valentino would have noticed Brooks, who resembled his first wife, actress Jean Acker. Like many teenagers of the time, Louise was a fan of the suave actor, who was 9 years older. She saw every Valentino film she could while growing up in Wichita, Kansas, a fact she dutifully recorded in her diary. 14-year-old Louise began a diary on January 1st, 1921. 4 days later, she noted she had seen Once to Every Woman at the Regent Theater. The film was heavily promoted in the local papers, played a full week, and reportedly brought tears to the eyes of many Wichita moviegoers. Despite Dorothy Phillips being the film's nominal star, Brooks emphatically noted in her diary that it really starred Rudolph Valentino. Later that year, in September of 1921, Brooks recorded having seen The Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse at the Princess Theater. This stirring epic is full of drama and emotion, and 14-year-old Louise wrote in her diary that she had, quote, cried a barrelful. 2 months later, in November of 1921, Brooks went to see the Chic. Writing in her diary, Louise declared Valentino her favorite, adding, "What female don't admire the con man stuff?" One thing the two stars had in common was dance. Each started out as dancers who had made a small name for themselves before turning to acting. Later, when their careers before the camera stalled, each turned to exhibition dancing as a way to make a living. Valentino did so in the mid-1920s, Brooks in the mid-1930s. Brooks' film career began in 1925 when she signed a contract with Paramount famous Players Lasky. For a short time, Brooks and Valentino shared a studio, and likely knew and worked with a few of the same people, such as writer Monty Catterjohn. Catterjohn adapted two of Valentino's best films, Moran of the Lady Letty and The Chic, as well as a few films starring Gloria Swanson, another favorite of young Louise. Catterjohn also penned the story behind Brooks' breakout film, A Social Celebrity, which was released in the spring of 1926, just a few months before Valentino's untimely death. Incidentally, that film was directed by Malcolm St. Clair, with whom Brooks was friendly. Malcolm St. Clair was one of the pallbearers at Valentino's funeral. From Brooks' later accounts, we know that she encountered Valentino, or at least observed him, at parties and social gatherings. Later in life, she said as much to author Jan Wall, a friend and frequent correspondent. Brooks told Wall she had observed Valentino at a party at Gloria Swanson's home in Englewood, New Jersey in 1926. According to Brooks, Swanson had thrown the party in Valentino's honor and had imported a parquet floor for the night so Rudy could dance the tango. According to Brooks, Valentino had a sallow complexion and sat at the bottom of the stairs, seemingly unnoticed and neglected. Jan Wall mentioned this incident to Swanson in 1968. She recalled the party, but not Valentino's apparent sadness. Brooks was living and working in New York City when word broke that Valentino had died at the age of 31 on August 23, 1926. The news shocked the film community and the world. Fans cried, many mourned, and at least one committed suicide. A week later, Brooks attended the Valentino funeral mass at St. Malachy's Church in New York. Admittance was by invitation only. How she gained admittance to the event, we do not know. Perhaps it was through the good graces of Paramount, their shared studio. At the time, however, Brooks was only an up-and-coming actress and not especially well known. Nevertheless, she was there. The New York Morning Telegraph reported Brooks was among the mourners at the event, along with Houdini, Paula Negri, Douglas Fairbanks and Mary Pickford, Jean Acker, and others. The newspaper even singled out the young actress, stating Brooks had, quote, cried unashamed. As the years passed, Brooks continued to think highly of Valentino and his films. In 1938, Brooks was living in Los Angeles, and in April of that year, she went to a revival screening of The Sheik at the Film Art Theater on Vine Street. A capacity crowd turned out, with fans lining up down the block to get in. Brooks, however, left before the end of the film because the audience was laughing at the movie. She wouldn't stand for it. In her later years, Brooks kept notebooks commenting on the films she saw, the books she was reading, and the personalities she had known in her younger days, including Rudolph Valentino. In 1962, Brooks was living a quiet life in Rochester, New York. She was something of a local, albeit minor, celebrity, having once been a quote-unquote movie star. A local radio show asked the one-time actress to talk about Hollywood and the personalities she had known. Brooks agreed and appeared on the radio some 10 times, speaking about the likes of Marion Davies, Joan Crawford, Greta Garbo, Fatty Arbuckle, and others. It is not known if the programs themselves were recorded, but if they were, they likely no longer exist. However, in 2018, I uncovered audio tapes of Brooks' unedited commentary, which seemingly was pre-recorded for the program. No one has heard this material in nearly 60 years. For this presentation, I will play 2 short excerpts. In the first segment, Brooks discusses Clara Bow, and then goes on to speak about Valentino, who was, she notes, also Bow's favorite actor.
Also Miss Bow's favorite actor. If we admit it now, he was all of us thought he was a marvelous actress. You see, when talkies first came in and they ran films very fast, it began in Hollywood, showing his old films. And all the everything begins in Hollywood, you see. All publicity starts there. That's why actors would rather be praised there than any place in the world, because it goes out from there, you see, and the whole world believes it. So in Hollywood, they started looking at old Valentino pictures like The Sheik, and all the people would go to, I remember the theater on Vine Street, and just laugh their heads off, you see. And I remember I was so cross one night, I got up and stamped out with a good deal of noise and left. Of course, nobody cared. They were so busy laughing. That was because they ran the film so fast, you see. But that traveled all over the world. 3 years ago, I was up in Canada and saw the most gorgeous picture Valentino ever made, the son of the Sheik. Oh, yeah. The one he died at its premiere in New York. And I saw all these Canadians laughing. There was nothing funny about the picture. It was the most beautiful picture. And he in those gorgeous costumes and riding horses. And as you know, he was a great athlete and a great horseman. It was so beautiful, this picture. And Vilma Banky was a dear, she was a dear little gypsy, blonde, but still a gypsy. And I said to some of the Canadians as I walked out, mind you, I'm not talking about them because they're Canadians.
No,
I'm just telling you how far it traveled.
Yes.
And how many years it's been. And I said, why do you laugh at that picture? What's funny? Well, I don't know. Everybody was laughing. We laughed. You see, they don't know. They don't look at what they see. But Valentino, to me, was the most perfectly graceful man. Do you know that's one thing you cannot fake in movies?
It's grace?
Grace. You know, it's just like a ball player getting up to bat. He's on his own, and the moment an actor has to make an exit or an entrance, he has to do it all alone. No director can teach him or tell him. And they fear those shots, especially walking away from the camera and walking towards it. And you don't realize that, of course, unless you are an actor or are a director and say, what am I going to do with this actor? You know, Ronald Colman was famous for his oafish, horrible walk, you see. But there was no one quite like Valentino, and I have a...
In this second audio clip, Brooks continues her remembrance of Valentino, noting the last time she saw Rudy, just a couple of weeks before his death, as he disappeared behind the black velvet curtain.
Valentino, and I have a sweet story to tell you. It happened just 2 weeks before he died. You know, there was quite an ugly story told about his death, as you remember. I don't know what it was, but what actually happened was he had an acute attack of appendicitis, and he was always exercising, you know. And he didn't go to bed, and he went on doing his push-ups or push-downs or whatever one does, and of course his appendix burst and he died. But 2 weeks before his death, you see, he was there in New York for the opening of his greatest picture, as it turned out to be, The Son of the Sheik. And one night I was sitting in the Lido, which was the most fashionable nightclub in New York, and he came in all alone in his beautiful black tails and his white tie
And his black hair.
and his beautiful black hair and his dark skin. And he came over to our table. I was sitting with Ben Hagen, you know, he did the tableaus for Ziegfeld, and his girl, who was a great friend of Rudy's. Rudy had many, many women friends. She was a beautiful redhead in sea green, and they danced together many, many times. And he said, will you dance? So she got up, and they went to the dance floor. The band stopped the foxtrot. They started the tango. And something happened that we've seen in movies, and is always so unbelievable, so ludicrous. You know, don't you remember the singer, Janet MacDonald, gets up and sings, and the people scream and howl for miles all around and applaud, and she's done nothing. And so they began to dance a tango, and of course they were perfect. It was exquisite. This redhead in green, floating draperies. Everyone sat down, and they were the most spoiled people in the world. All the celebrities in New York went there. It was cafe society at that time. They couldn't help it. They all sat down and watched. And finally the dance ended, and again the right thing happened. No one applauded. No one said a word. Rudy brought Irene back to our table, said thank you very much, and bowed. Then he walked back to the stairs that led up under the exit sign, a black velvet curtain, and walked through the curtain and disappeared.
Oh,
And nobody even then said anything. An absolute stillness. They'd seen something beautiful, beautiful. And it really was exit, wasn't it, in a way?
It was a magnificent exit. A tribute to a great person and a great actor.
And he was dead in 2 weeks.
And that's the last time you ever saw him.
Through the black velvet curtains.
Before I end this presentation, I wish to thank Tracy Terhune for inviting me to speak at the 2019 Valentino Memorial Service. It was a great honor. By the way, that's me on the left and Tracy on the right. Tracy is the organizer and host of the event, as well as an acknowledged authority on the life of Rudolph Valentino. I should also add he is the grandson of Max Terhune, a noted actor of the 30s and 40s who had a major role in Louise Brooks' last film, Overland Stage Raiders. I hope you enjoyed this presentation. This is Thomas Gladysz, Thanks for listening.